Okay, this is my informative speech for Dr. Earl's class, and these are the 3 people that I have for my video. Okay, and growing up as a Major League Baseball umpire's daughter, you get asked a lot of questions about what their job really entails. Since a lot of people don't know what Major League Baseball umpires do for a living, you get asked so many questions. And I thought this would be pretty appropriate. And since baseball season starts tomorrow, this is pretty appropriate too. And the 3 things I want to talk about are the travel they go through, the job in itself, and just some general facts about Major League Baseball umpires. So the first thing I want to talk about is the travel they go through. As an umpire, you travel a lot. So if you have a fear of flying, this is definitely not the career path you want to get into because you're traveling a lot. And since they travel a lot, they have to go to airports all the time, and they don't have their own private jets like a lot of people think, so they have to go through an airport like a normal person. And when they go through the airports, they have to deal with security, they have to deal with plane malfunctions, they have to deal with weather delays, plane delays, basically anything that you can think of these guys have gone through because they go to an airport every 3 days, sometimes 4. And since they fly all the time, they may be going from coast to coast. They may go from the East Coast and work there 3 days, then they'll go to the West Coast, they'll work about a week and a half out in California, and then they'll have to come back to the East Coast and work 3 days. And that puts a lot of stress and sleep deprivation on them because they lack sleep and they need to be alert at all times when they work. And as person at that age, you should be getting about 8 hours of sleep, and a lot of times they're not from all their traveling. They also don't have really their own place to stay in the city unless it's their hometown, so all the time they're staying in hotels. And when they're in hotels, they can't really unpack in these places because they're there for really only essentially 1 day, because the first day they get there, and then the 3rd day they're kind of packing up and leaving. And since they're in hotels all the time as well, they also have to eat out all the time, and that is really bad on them because that's poor nutrition that they have to go through because it's hard to eat healthy when you're not having home-cooked meat all the time. They also, through the whole season, only get 4 weeks off. So from April to September, they only get 4 weeks off, and they do get days off here and there because they're not allowed to work more than 3 weeks without a day off because they do have to work weekends as well. And since they only get 4 weeks off, those 4 weeks off are really important for them because that's time they don't have to deal with airports, time they don't have to deal with hotels, eating out all the time, and they get to sleep in their own bed and not work on the field as well. And talking about working on the field leads me to my second point, is talking about kind of the job in itself. In a whole, there are only 68 umpires in the whole United States, which a lot of people don't know that because it's a pretty rare job to have. So to be an umpire, you have to be pretty excellent at what you do since it's so rare. And through the whole game, these umpires are thinking about everything and anything that could possibly go on. They have to watch the batter, they have to watch the pitcher, they have to watch all the managers, all the fans, places that there could be fan interference. So through the whole game, they're very alert and conscious about everything, and so they don't really get a break through the whole game because they have to be alert all the time. And they also have to make all their calls in a split second, which to me that's pretty hard to do because the brain has to think a lot. And if someone doesn't like their calls, they get yelled at. A manager, a player, or the whole stadium will start booing them and yelling and screaming. And who really wants to be yelled at a call they made in a split second? And if they also get it wrong, they'll be all over SportsCenter. They'll be in the newspaper. People will call them. People have called me about my dad being on SportsCenter. So when you get a bad call against you, it really sucks because the whole world knows. And I have a statistic here from my dad, who's on a joint committee who kind of oversees a lot of what they do in the training. And in 2013, 96.5% of the calls behind the plate, so the umpire that calls the balls and strike at home plate, 96.5% of them were correct. And 99.6% of the calls on base, so the calls they make on first, second, and third, 99.6 were correct. So essentially, in the year of 2013, only 5% of calls were wrong. 5%. So that's pretty good if you ask me. So I don't know why umpires like to be given a hard time. Now I'm going to talk about my third point, which kind of the general facts about Major League Baseball umpires. A lot of people don't know this, but you have to kind of work your way up just like you would a player. You have to go to school. There's one in Florida, which is the one my dad attended, and there's one in Arizona, I believe. And when you go to the school, you have to be the top 10 of your class. So the top 10 people in the school will move on to the minor leagues. And once you get to the minor leagues, you will work your way from single A to double A, and then there's triple A. And when you're in triple A, you may work some in the majors so they can see what your skills are in the major leagues, and you'll work in triple A as well. So you'll work up and down for a couple years. And when you're lucky enough, you'll be called to the major leagues. And then once you're in the major leagues, you work with a crew of 4 people for the whole entire season. And there's a crew chief on that crew, and he's kind of in charge of the crew and makes all the big decisions and kind of helps the crew out along the way. It's this kind of the guy that's been around the longest as well too. They also, on the field, a lot of people don't know this as well, is they rotate around the bases in a clockwise manner. So they might start at home, then they'll go to third base, then they'll go to second base, and the first, and then home. So essentially every 4 days they're at the same base, which a lot of people don't know because they think they only work one base. And I was online trying to find a random thing about Major League Baseball that I didn't really know, since I know so much about their job. And I found that on April 22nd, 1876, a man named William McLean became the first professional umpire. So essentially this career path has been around for over 100 years, which I thought was pretty neat and interesting. And so in conclusion, I hope you learned a little bit more about what umpires really do for a living through the travel, their job, and kind of just some general facts and knowledge about umpiring. And I have a quote here from Larry Goetz, who was a former Major League Baseball umpire, and it says, "It isn't enough for an umpire to merely know what he's doing. He has to look as though he knows what he's doing too." And so the next time you go to a baseball game, the next time you want to yell, "Hey, Blue, you suck," just think about what their job really entails. Thank you.
Woo!